Hi, everyone. My name is Dami Waldron, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement at Westtown. Before we begin this evening, let's take a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for joining us for this wonderful event. Our panelists, who will be introduced in a few moments, have backgrounds, experiences, and passion. This is a webinar style event, so feel free to use the chat to engage, share your kudos, or ask questions. Will we be giving away a couple Netflix bags, a signed copy of Dr. Theon Griffith's book, as well as a copy of Talia Martini's book, who graduated from Westtown in 2018. In order to be entered into the drawing to win those prizes, use hashtag Westtown in the chat, and we will draw your name at the end of the event. Our host this evening will be two of our current students, Ada Palacios and Toby Zuckerberg. We are excited to have these two as a part of this experience, and we are delighted that you all are joining us tonight, and I will now turn it over to our hosts, Toby and Ada.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ada Palacios. I'm a junior here. I'm the head of the Latinx affinity group here, and I am so excited to interview these alumni tonight and see what I can learn for my future career.
Hi, my name is Toby Zuckerberg. I'm a senior going to Tufts next year, looking to major in psychology and sociology with a minor in music. I am the moderator of a interview series I started earlier this year called the Untitled Speaker Series, which I host every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we interview alumni just kind of about their career, about their life at Westtown, and their life in general. And Ada is one of the students who will be picking it up next year. So first, we'd like to introduce Theon Griffith.
Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. My name is Theon Griffith. I am a neuroscientist as well as a children's book author. I write the science adventure series, The Magnificent Makers. I'm originally from Alexandria, Virginia, where I went to West Potomac High School. Subsequently, I went to Smith College in Massachusetts, where I majored in both neuroscience and Spanish. After graduating from Smith, I spent a couple years working in Santiago, Chile in a laboratory, and then subsequently went to Northwestern University, where I earned my PhD in neuroscience. And I am currently an assistant professor at the University of California, Davis.
Thank you so much. Next, we'd like to introduce Talia Martini, who graduated in 2018.
Hi, everybody. I'm Talia Martini. I'm from Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. I went to Westtown in high school, and I graduated in 2018. I went to Villanova after that, and I still go at Villanova. I'm a junior there. I'm a psychology major and a history minor. And during my time at Westtown, I started writing this book, The Miracle of Broken Endings, and since then have worked on it, re-edited it over the years, and finally decided to self-publish it during the pandemic because I was like, I have a lot of time, might as well. And I've been working on new books since then, so yep.
And next, we'll hand it over to Amanda Meister.
Hi, I'm Amanda Meister. I am originally from New Jersey. I went to Purnell School with Dami, actually, in New Jersey, and graduated from the New School University in New York City. I currently am a technical recruiter at Netflix and live here in San Francisco, California.
Okay, next we'd like to introduce Cole Rothacker.
Hi, my name is Cole Rothacker. I'm originally from Chester Springs as well, from Chester Springs, King of Prussia. Went to Westtown and graduated in 2010. Went to Columbia College, Chicago, and studied film and animation there. Then I moved out to Los Angeles in 2014. Did a lot of internships and freelancing at studios like Nickelodeon and Warner Brothers, and right now I work full-time as an assistant production manager at Warner Brothers Animation.
And lastly, we'd like to introduce Julie Wilson.
Hey everyone, I'm Julie Wilson. I'm also from Chester Springs, so this is wild that there's so many Chester Springs people on this call. So originally from Chester Springs, went to Westtown, graduated in 2000, then went off to the University of Richmond in Virginia, where I studied journalism and leadership studies, and I was also a Division I track and field athlete. I then made my way to New York City, where I pursued my dream of becoming a journalist. I worked at Real Simple magazine for 6.5 years. Then I went to the Huffington Post for 4.5 years. And then I went to Essence magazine for 4 years. And now I'm currently the beauty director at Cosmopolitan magazine, and I've been there for 1 year now. So that's the quick and dirty on me.
Awesome. Just to jump right into it, we're going to start with Theanne. Theanne, how did you get into academia, and what is the journey to becoming a tenured track professor?
Yeah, so actually both of my parents were professors. And so the idea of working as a professor in academia was very familiar to me. I've always loved science. I've always been a science kid, you know, playing with lightning bugs and tadpoles in the creek. So I've always very much been passionate about science. But for a while there, I wanted to be a doctor. And then something changed in high school when I took an AP bio class and I was introduced to the world of neuroscience. And I realized that I could be a full-time neuroscientist researcher. And pretty much from about 16 years old, set my sights on accomplishing that goal. And so when I went to Smith, I studied neuroscience. I worked in a research lab all 4 years, which was amazing, a really amazing experience. And then, as I mentioned in my bio, after doing that, I was also really passionate about languages. And so I wanted to combine those two and hopped on down to Chile, to South America, where I continued honing my research skills, gaining more experience, which then made me a competitive applicant for graduate school. And so the next step in my career was obtaining my PhD, and I applied to various places and found that Northwestern was just the perfect fit for me. And while I was there, I joined a laboratory and gained a whole set of new skills that included different research techniques, as well as writing, grant writing, paper writing, email writing, all of the writing things. And so that was a lot of fun, and it really solidified my desire to pursue a career in academia. And so there was one more step, believe it or not, after getting my PhD that I had to do before becoming a professor, and that was what's called a postdoc. It's called a postdoctoral research fellow, similar to doing a residency after medical school, whereby you already have like your advanced degree, but you take some extra time to really specialize in a specific subset. So in my case, I specialized in sensory neuroscience, or somatosensation. And that's just a big fancy word for like sensations that our skin feels, like touch, pain, temperature, even itch. And so I did a postdoc at Columbia University for about 4 years. And then pandemic kind of threw things off a little bit. So I took what's called a non-tenure track position. So just kind of a research position at Rutgers University before I applied to the position I'm in now as an assistant professor at the University of California, Davis. And I just opened my lab in October. So I'm a kind of a brand new baby professor, but it's been a blast so far.
And I'm wondering, how did you end up going from teaching neuroscience to then writing a children's book series? I feel like it's not a very common route people take.
Yes, no, it is not. Well, in addition to always being a science kid, I've always been a storyteller. I'm an only child, and so I ended up spending a lot of time by myself, telling myself stories. And I also was very much an avid reader and writer. I would go to the library, check out massive stacks of books, and I always had this, I don't know if hidden is the right word, but always had this underlying passion to become an author. And I just didn't really necessarily know how to go about doing that, and had my sights set on science. But in 2017, I had my first daughter, and I was on maternity leave with her. And I just had some time to sit there and think about my life and you know, the passions that I had and that I wanted to explore. And I pretty much decided, like, you know what? We're going to do this. We're just going to start writing books. We're going to find a literary agent and we're going to do this. And obviously it wasn't necessarily that straightforward, but in the end, I was able to acquire a literary agent and signed a contract with Random House to write these books. And I decided that these books were really important for me because as a young Black girl growing up, I didn't have a lot of any books maybe that featured a young Black girl like doing science and having fun. And so in these books, the main characters are Pablo, who is Afro-Latino from Puerto Rico, and Violet, who is a young Black girl. And that's literally what they do. They go on science adventures, have fun, you know, get into a little bit of trouble. But, you know, it just allowed me to combine my two passions. And the one lovely thing about an academic career is it does give you flexibility to do things like that. You know, while it's not directly in line with what I've been hired to do, which is research, it is still an extension of my scientific career. It still functions as outreach, right? I do school visits. I talk with children about neuroscience and how cool it is to be a scientist. And so while it may seem a little kind of out of left field, it's not necessarily that strange or that surprising. And as I mentioned also in my bio or earlier, as a scientist, we write a lot. We are trained extensively to be good writers. That is how we communicate our science with each other. So in addition to my natural talents, I had my writing talents honed throughout my scientific career. And I think that combination really kind of was perfect.
Oh, thank you so much. Our next question is for Talia. And could you tell us a little bit about what the transition was like from being a student at Westtown to being a college student at Villanova?
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, it wasn't, I honestly, like, compared to a lot of my friends, it wasn't hard because I was a boarding student at Westtown. So there wasn't that much of a change, except for being around like a whole new group of people. I just remember my first day, I was like so excited, so nervous. And I kind of just walked into the dorm and my roommates were both very, one of my roommates, still my roommate today, I love her, but they were both very homesick. And I was just like, I don't understand, like, why are you guys so homesick? And I just kind of realized, like, I've already gone through this, like, over the years with Westtown. And so I feel like my transition was, like, so much easier. And academically, I don't think it was that difficult either. It took me a little while to figure out what I wanted to do with my college career because I was just all over the place. Like the first year I was like, my friends all make fun of me because first year I wanted to do biology, and then that like transitioned to like political science, and then that transitioned to, I was like, I want to own a bakery, and then that transitioned to me being a psychology major, and that's actually stuck. But I'm also a pre-law psychology major who writes books. So like it's kind of all over the place. And I just like, I've had a problem because I just like doing so many things and I haven't been able to kind of figure that out. But it's also fun because I love what I do academically. I like what I can look forward to what I'm doing with my life. And I also have hobbies that I love to do. So yeah.
Thank you. That kind of brings us to our next question about how did you manage to write and publish a book while attending college at the same time?
It's so funny because when you guys were contacting me about this, you're like, oh, like you're a college student, you must be busy. I'm not busy. Like I don't know a lot of college students that are that busy. I feel like this is the time of life when you have your like the most time. Like, and especially with the pandemic, I stayed home most of the pandemic because I had asthma and I was home until I got vaccinated and everybody else was at school. So that was kind of hard for me. So I was like, what do I do with all of this time? So I really just focused on this book because I was like, I've been working on this book for like 6 years. Like it's time to just let it go and move on to new things. So I did. And I'm really happy I did because I really it's really nice to get to hold a book in your hands, and it's really nice to just move on to see what new stories you can write.
Mm-hmm. It's really awesome to hear. Thank you. Amanda, you've worked for a lot of really big names, which is cool as somebody who knows nothing about your field to see. How did you land a job in recruiting for some of the world's largest tech and streaming companies?
Yeah, and I've definitely had a very untraditional growing up. I also went to a boarding school, but from there I actually attended 3 universities. Very different. And I think, the first university I went to was very traditional, where you had to have these exact classes and things like that. I knew it wasn't right for me. And I decided to go to community college for a year. Well, I decided what I wanted to do. I actually was a psych major. That's a big theme here. I did a lot of cognitive neuroscience. And I decided to join the New School University because it was just very liberal in what the classes look like, what you can study, different things outside of that. And I was able to pursue a BA/MA program in actually 5 years altogether. So it was really interesting experience for me, seeing different types of universities and how it could be so different. So from there, I moved to a one-way ticket to California. I didn't intend to get into recruiting. I think most recruiters actually, there's no degree for this. A lot of people do have psych or sociology backgrounds. And like working with people, but maybe realize they don't want to go into the clinical side of psychology. And from there, I actually, I don't know if it's a fun fact, but I moved to California without a job, not realizing how expensive San Francisco was. And I worked in Pier 39, which is similar to like what Times Square would be in New York City, like just the tourist destination where people out of town usually go. You won't see a lot of locals there. So really growing, like not knowing anyone, working minimum wage, and being able to sort of see what I could get into. I took the route of going into tech before I transitioned into a recruiting role. And it definitely taught me a lot, what I wanted, what I didn't want in a role. I was really fortunate back in 2018 to start working at Facebook and learned so much there. Such a huge company and so much information about things going on and a lot of the different companies within. I worked in the Oculus division, which focuses on AR VR, so touched parts of recruiting and products that I never thought like I would be a part of, especially in the AR space. Things that the Oculus headset is like the VR virtual reality world. So I don't think there's necessarily a way of this is how you get in or this is how you do recruiting. It just fell on my lap, like a lot of things, sort of just work out. I think definitely if you have your eye on the prize and you are always networking and working with other people and making connections that really last, that's the piece that I think lets you go back to those connections a few years later and will help you, get into some of these companies, or at least have the first call.
Oh, thank you. Our next question is for Cole. We'd like to know how you broke into the field of animation and how exactly you landed your job at Warner Brothers.
Yeah, so I graduated from Westtown in 2010, and I went to Columbia College Chicago, and I studied animation there. Studied under a lot of teachers who worked previously at Warner Brothers and Disney and other places like that. And then I graduated in 2014 and moved to California then. I got an internship at Nickelodeon, and I worked there for a little bit in their development department, which was pretty cool. So I got to help them out on pilots and shorts they were making for animated programs. And then for a few years, I did freelancing. I wanted to break in as an artist in animation. I wanted to be a storyboard artist because in school, they kind of hammer into your head that being a storyboard artist is kind of like the most attractive job to have in animation because you get to do the most creative stuff. And that's what kind of appealed to me about that. But after doing that for a few years as a freelancer and, making ends meet with minimum wage jobs and things like that on the side, I realized, as much as I like being an artist and drawing, that I don't think I wanted to pursue it as a career, because in animation, it's both very competitive and it's also extremely hard work, which, you're either up for it and you're not. And I kind of looked at myself and realized, well, I like drawing and being creative, but I don't think I want to do it on that kind of a schedule and pursue it as a career. So I kind of took a step back from animation for a couple years, kind of reassessed what I wanted to do and, looked for other creative jobs. And then I ended up getting a job as a associate editor at a digital media company called Ranker. And I did that for a few years, and that was really cool because I got to kind of learn how to manage people, and I got to do creative things because I was kind of in charge of, making sure that their social media was done a certain way. So I worked a lot with Photoshop and graphics and writing and things like that, making videos with a team of other people. So that was cool. And after doing that for a few years, I decided, okay, well, I still want to do animation. I'm not sure what I can do exactly because I don't think art is really where I want to go. So I talked to friends that I had in the industry still and, got their advice and realized that being a production manager is a line of work that I think would really suit me, because even though it's not being an artist, I got to work with all the artists. I get to kind of dictate to them, everything that they need to draw for a show or a movie. And I get to work with the producers and the directors and the editors and all those good people. So that I realized that to me is what was really appealing, was working with creative people and helping them do the job that they need to do. I worked at Ranker for a couple of years, and then I just started applying for jobs in animation. I still had lots of friends and contacts there. I eventually just, I applied to Netflix and Disney and all the sorts of places you would. But I knew someone at Warner Brothers. They got me in for an interview, or they pointed me in the direction of a job listing, and then I kind of just reached out to the head of the studio. They didn't know who I was, and I didn't know them, but I reached out to them, and they took pity on me, or saw or had some interest in me or something, and they brought me in. They had me in for an interview. I interviewed for a couple of different shows, and then I eventually ended up getting offered a job for one of them, and that's how I broke in.
Well, that's awesome. Could you tell us some of the animated films that you've worked on?
Yeah, I work for Warner Brothers Animation, so they mostly do television and direct-to-video films. Right now, I'm finishing up working on the 4th season of a show called Young Justice, which is based on a DC Comics property. It's kind of about these younger counterparts to the Justice League characters. So that was pretty fun because I'm a pretty big comic book fan and superhero fan. And it's a very complex show, but it was really rewarding to work on. And I'm about to start working on a couple of direct-to-video movies for Scooby-Doo, and all those projects are going to be on HBO Max, I think, in the next year or so.
It's awesome. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Julie, what does it mean to you to, what does it mean to you to be a beauty director at one of the most well-known magazines?
It means everything. I'm really blessed that I get to tell stories in a really big way at a big platform. So, obviously being a part of the Cosmopolitan family is great because there's a lot of people, you know, who get to see my work. And that's really validating, and it's, you know, humbling and all of those things. But I've been able to work at a lot of great brands over the years and really hone my voice, hone my editing. I think a lot of people think my industry is all about just like glitz and glamour and parties, and it's like, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of, you know, being in the trenches. I do get to do a lot of fun things. Like, don't get me wrong. It is a fabulous job. I basically live in my apartment in New York is basically like a Sephora warehouse, because I have like every single beauty product you could ever think of. I probably have like hundreds of like mascaras and lipsticks and like all of those things. So it's really exciting and that's fun, but it's like, I have to know, you know, the science, you know, speaking to the doctor in the room, you know, I have to know the science behind all of these products. I have to understand, you know, what it means for the industry, and like what are the innovations. And I get to talk to really amazing people in the industry, from celebrities to scientists to, you know, dermatologists to other thought leaders. And that's really fun. I think, again, sometimes it can feel like, oh, like she just has a fabulous job and there's like, you know, and she goes home and like chills. And I always use the example of, you know, like, even when I get to talk to a celebrity, like Tracee Ellis Ross, I did an amazing, you know, interview with her. I used to have a podcast when I was with Essence Magazine. And then we turned that podcast conversation I had with Tracee Ellis Ross into a cover story. And there's this picture of us during our interview where we're jumping on the bed, because I met her at this hotel in LA. And we're jumping on the bed, we're being really silly. And, you know, I got a lot of comments on it. Everyone's like, oh my God, your life is so fabulous, great, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes, you're right. But like, what you don't see is having to go home and transcribe that interview, and, you know, the sleepless nights of crafting that story, and knowing that a woman who was literally like developed in Diana Ross's womb will be like reading this story. Like, I got to do it justice. Like, I can't just be like, oh, Tracee Ellis Ross is cool and she has a new hairline coming out. Like, to be a storyteller is not super easy. There's the work that people don't see. They just see the glory of, oh, you got to jump on a bed with Tracee Ellis Ross and you got a cover story. Like, that was weeks of sleepless nights, going back and forth with like editing, all of those things. So, you know, I know that, you know, going back to your question, I think that it's just important for everyone on here watching to know that a lot of our industries and a lot of our jobs seem like very cool and great. And yes, I work for Cosmopolitan magazine, but there's a lot of work and sacrifice and grit that goes into it. And just to know that, like, for those moments of glamour, there's so much work that goes into it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our next question is for both Cole and Julie, and it's, how did Westtown prepare you for life after Westtown? And we can start with Cole.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So like Julie, I was from Chester Springs, which is about 20 minutes away from Westtown. And I got admitted, and I remember I was in 8th grade and I got the acceptance call that, you know, I could go to Westtown, which was very exciting. But I didn't have exemplary grades. I had very, you know, normal 8th grade boy grades, lots of B's and C's. So I could go, but on the condition that I go and board for my freshman year, which was a little daunting at the time. But I ended up really enjoying it. I lived in Stonehouse for a year, and it was really a great experience because it was kind of like being away from home, but not really. It sort of like helped me wade into living on my own, living away from my parents, and having to generally take care of myself, do my laundry, make sure I'm presentable and all that stuff, which I knew before going to school. But again, it's a bit different when you're kind of by yourself and your parents aren't there every day to help you out or to guide you necessarily. So that was a great experience. I think getting to just meet a lot of different folks from different parts of the world and with different orientations and beliefs and things like that was a really great experience. I'm from a pretty small suburban neighborhood outside of Philadelphia, and wasn't the most diverse area, at least from my perspective growing up. So getting to meet all sorts of different folks, I think really kind of helped prepare me to meet the world at large. Going to school, I went to school in Chicago, so that was in a big city in the Midwest. And then I moved to Los Angeles, which is also a big city on the West Coast. And, there's all sorts of different folks that live there. And I think, going to Westtown kind of helped prepare me, to meet the world at large, as it were.
I agree. What Cole was trying to say about Chester Springs is that it's really white.
Yeah, as you can tell.
Coming from a Black woman, I can let me just break it down. It was really white. A lot of horses, a lot of people and horses. So I agree that going to Westtown, look, Westtown was more diverse than my public school. So for me, my parents' decision, I wanted to go. And like Cole, when I got that acceptance letter when I was in 8th grade, it was like, oh my gosh, you couldn't tell me I didn't win the lottery or I wasn't going to Harvard or whatever. I was really excited. It gave me a chance to see the world without leaving Pennsylvania. I've met so many people. We had one of my classmates, Fadi, is from Afghanistan. One of my best friends from Westtown, Anna Fang, is from China. It was mind-blowing to me that I could be friends with all of these people from around the world and learn about their cultures. They could learn about me. That only fueled my passion to want to storytell and want to learn about so many people. And now in my profession, being a beauty director, it's not only talking about Black beauty and white beauty. It's what are my Indigenous brothers and sisters? What are my Asian brothers and sisters? How do all of these people, our Latinx brothers and sisters, how do they interact with this thing that I love so much called beauty? And that's, and as we all know from this past year too, beauty is beyond the lipstick you wear and what you put in your hair. It's self-care. And it's really about, it's really emotional and mental and all of those things that we were stuck at home and people were able to take care of their skin better, rest better, take a bath, light a candle. All of that goes back to what I do. So Westtown really instilled that curiosity in me to understand other people and how they intersect with certain things. So I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear, especially being in Westtown and being about to leave. Amanda, you're actively recruiting for Netflix. So how does a person land a job at Netflix or even Facebook or Instagram?
Yeah, that's a great question, and probably a little different depending on, Netflix versus Facebook. At Netflix, one thing I love about hiring, and just to give more context, so I hire a software engineer, so I'm deep in the tech side for what we're doing here. One thing I really love about Netflix is the engineering managers who I work with to hire. They reply to people reaching out to them on LinkedIn or sending them a message, which is really rare. I feel like for engineering managers and just people to do in recruiting. A lot of times it's all about, apply and, make sure your resume looks nice, which yes, is definitely part of the job. job, but it definitely makes things a little more humane, being able to work with really just having a different kind of process, having our hiring managers reply to people. They are to give a little more context, so my role at Netflix and even at Facebook is called what is like a sourcer. So it's doing the front end of recruiting, where I don't look at the applicants. I typically find people. That's my job. So I am really good private investigator here. I find them if it's on LinkedIn or if it's through other resources. I love going to meetup groups and like conferences and things like that to find people who may not be actively looking for a role, and trying to see if they would be interested in having a conversation with Netflix. So that's sort of the capacity I'm in when I talk about recruiting, rather than someone who just goes through applicants and then closes people and gets an offer letter. So it's really about getting people who could be really great, and they don't even know that they would be interested in our role, interested in it. Yeah, that's a little bit. I don't know if there's any more I could go into.
Awesome. Our next question is for Julie again. Kind of as a beauty director, how do you think magazines and social media play a role in the unrealistic beauty standards that we kind of see in society nowadays?
I think they're a huge factor in that, but I think it's getting better. I think that social media has, it's a democracy now. Like, people can, choose what they want to see, curate who they want to follow, that sort of thing. Obviously, there are still filters and like that. I love a filter because it makes me look like I got some sleep. I am literally on maternity leave right now. I have a newborn. So like, I'm throwing on filters all the time. But I think it's also about having conversations around like what that means. And like, we know that there's a filter on, and like, I love that Instagram made a feature now that you have to see that someone's had a filter on their face. But it's my job as someone who has a seat at the table in these conversations at a magazine to make sure that we are, making people feel good about themselves, no matter, what these unrealistic standards are. We just did an issue around acne and trying to talk about how, sure, you might want to get rid of that pimple or get rid of, or make sure that your skin looks good, right? But we're also want to say that like skin with acne and blemishes is still good skin. Like, and let's not forget that you're beautiful no matter if you have blemishes or not, or scars or whatever it is. But if you want to clear them up, we also have that information for you too. So I think it's about expanding the idea of like what beauty is, because it is so narrow, the like you said, society's standard of beauty. But that's our job as editors, to expand it and say, yeah, you can be that if you want to. Look, to each their own. But you should also know that this is beautiful and that is beautiful, and whatever reflection you see in the mirror is beautiful. So I think it's getting better. We're not completely there yet, but we're getting there.
Mm-hmm. This question is for Theanne and Talia. I'm wondering what has helped you get to where you are today, and what advice do you have for others who may want to follow a similar path?
I'll let Talia go first.
Okay, I was gonna think up my response.
Sorry, I can go if you'd like. Sorry, I just wanted to give you.
Okay, I've got this. So, okay, okay. Can you repeat the question?
Of course, yeah. What has helped you get to where you are today? And what advice would you have for others who may want to follow a similar path? Okay,
so there's been a lot that's helped me. Mainly my parents, I would say. Always shout out to my parents. I've just ever since I've grown up, growing up, I was just a huge nerd, and my dad definitely fed into that so much. We'd watch Lord of the Rings. We loved the Game of Thrones. The he would read me The Hobbit, Chronicles of Narnia, all of that. I was just a huge fan, and I loved it. And so all of that, he really helped fuel my creativity with that. My mom was a writer, so she really inspired me there. Growing up, when I was really young, she did a lot of editing. So I saw that over the years. She would help me with my writing, and I think she helped me turn into a really strong writer. So overall, I think my dad really helped with my creativity side, and my mom really helped with my writing side. And so yeah, they've definitely like been my main influences. Other than that, I would just say like advice for people is just you should do what makes you happy. Like even if it's not for your career, or I mean, you should probably do what makes you happy for your career. I don't know. I'm 21. But like, I think that you should have a lot of things that you should just enjoy doing in life. I think that one of like my generation's big problems is people will like make you focus on one thing throughout most of your like high school career and your early, like your middle school, especially sports nowadays. Like, it's just like, I grew up playing tennis and gosh, I hated tennis. And like, and I played up through high school. I almost went to college for it. And I just decided not to, because I'm so glad I decided not to, because since then, I just think I've discovered so many more things that I'm passionate about, like writing and just like baking and just stuff like that. And it's just really makes a difference. And I feel like in whether you're happy or not, to just have these things that you can rely on to just lift you up.
Yeah, I can kind of piggyback off of that pretty nicely. And I agree that for me, 100% having a good support network, my parents that eventually turned into, mentors and other people around me, and really identifying people in addition to your parents who are invested in your success. That has been fundamental, especially in a career like mine in academia, where it's very much a kind of an apprenticeship style career. You're trained by people who trained other people. And so making sure you have, those people in your corner, that was definitely fundamental for me. And especially, again, as a Black woman, we're underrepresented in science. So that's because of structural racism. And so finding people that are ready to combat that with you and really advocate for you is so crucial. There's a couple other things that I wanted to mention. And one was, when I was younger, I was kind of a brat. I was an only child. And what I really realized is I like to get my way. I fundamentally enjoy being right, and I like to get my way. And when I was younger, I see that with my daughter now, that she also likes to get her way and can be a little bit of a brat sometimes. I'm sorry, Violetta, if you ever see this. But what it is in the essence is it's a passion. It's a strong desire. And as I grew and as I matured and kind of refined my personality, I transformed that brattiness into just a persistence and figuring out, like, I want to do this. How am I going to get from here to here? And practicing that and making mistakes and learning from them and figuring out strategies to accomplish what you want to accomplish and being persistent and not giving up. And I'll just share one example of that. So I mentioned that in college, I double majored in neuroscience and Spanish, and I studied abroad in Chile before going there for work. And while I was studying abroad, I realized that I wanted to come back for work and I wanted to find a lab to work in. And so I sent out some emails and I got crickets. Like, nobody responded to me. And, I was like, okay. And I decided I want to do this. So I literally just walked to the university and I knocked on the door and I said, hi, I'm here to see Dr. So-and-so. I had no meeting. I had no appointment. I think they only let me through the door because I looked foreign. So they assumed that I had to have some reason to be there, that I wouldn't just be walking off the street, which I literally was. And then I landed in this man's office who then handed me off to somebody else, which turned into a summer internship, which turned into a job offer, And so had I taken that initial crickets as like, oh, no one wants to work with me, I don't know where I would be now. You know, it literally really set me on a career trajectory. I've maintained collaborations with Chilean scientists that I worked with. My husband is actually a Chilean scientist now. So it literally was a life-changing decision to just walk into that office and see what happened. And so, you know, be persistent. You know, that's what I've learned. Don't let people tell you no. And if they do tell you no, figure out how to turn that no into a yes if it's something that you really want. It may be frustrating. It may be hard. It may lead to, I guarantee you, it can lead to some sleepless nights. But if you're passionate about what you're doing, then that matters a little bit less. And so that kind of goes back into what Talia was saying about, you know, figuring out what you're passionate about. Don't waste time with things you're not passionate about. Life is short. We all have to work. I wish we didn't. Working sometimes sucks. But if you're going to have to work, if you're going to have sleepless nights, let it be for something that you care about. Let it be for something that, like, even when the day is done, you're like, whew, that was tough, but that was fun. So I guess that would be my 2 cents. Also, I just want to say that I want to live with Julie and play with Sephora stuff all day.
Visit me. You are
coming.
Send me I'll get your information. I will send you some product because 1, I cannot use it all. And 2, my husband will love me for sending it out of the apartment.
Okay.
I usually have a beauty closet at the office. But because we're not in the offices, everything gets sent to the house. And so he was like, what is going on here? And I was like, this is what happens at the office. Like, you just don't see it. And now it's in our tiny Harlem apartment. I got you.
Yes.
Thank you. That was really inspiring, Theanne. Our next question is for Amanda and Cole. Sorry. Our next question is for Amanda and Cole, and it's what struggles did you have reaching your professional goals, including those in college, including those struggles in college?
You can go first if you'd like, Amanda.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Let's see, struggles in college. There were a lot. Like I said, I went to 3 universities and had a lot of different experiences. I went from the first university I attended where I think I even I was not doing great in college. I'll just say that. I had some C's and D's, and really finding what I wanted to do made all the difference. I think passion, like everyone's been mentioning as a theme, is huge. I took a lot of really heavy astrophysics classes my first university, and I did not want to do anything with that. And when I decided to go into psychology, that's where I really focused on the passion, taking the classes I wanted, even some that were a little difficult, had to repeat statistics a few times. I think also in college, you know, I was working three jobs at the same time. And I had some personal struggles. I lost my father, which was a huge loss, especially, you know, being young and just trying to have your eye on your degree. I'm trying to finish that. That was really difficult for me. Professionally, I think the struggles that I've really come across have been more around anxiety and how to, you know, really focus on doing well, but surrounding yourself in a good work-life and balance. I think that's really just I feel like everyone now, especially in the pandemic, as a lot of people who are working from home, were feeling that work-life balance just really get more and more gray. So I think that's something I currently struggle with. I think making sure you're setting the boundaries, and like Julie was mentioning, self-care is so important right now. Making sure, whatever that means. I'm an introvert, so I stay inside. I make sure if it's a no technology day, I'm doing that. And I really abide by that and not, you know, turning on or putting my work computer up in any kind of way. Yeah. Cole, if you want to piggyback.
Yeah, no, for me, college was actually mostly kind of a breeze. I figured I wanted to study animation by the end of my freshman year, so that was pretty good, kind of knowing exactly what I wanted to focus on that early on. I had like a lot of encouragement in college, and I had a lot of great teachers and met a lot of great friends who also ended up moving out to Los Angeles around the same time as me. And that was great because I had kind of like a small network of people moving out here at the same time as I did. And I had people who I could, live with and be roommates with. And that was really, really helpful. I would just say in terms of my industry, I mean, the animation industry is so competitive and the work is like so hard. And I feel like school didn't like properly, I don't think they warned me enough about like how difficult it is. I mean, I assumed it would be difficult, but, really coming out here and getting to work freelance and internships, I kind of got to see, firsthand what exactly it takes to be an artist in that industry. And it's, as someone who now has to like tell the artists what to do, I can tell you it's such a punishing schedule. It's really, really difficult. And some people really like it and they really thrive on it. But, I found after a few years that it really wasn't what I wanted to do as a career. So that was kind of difficult because I had to grapple with the fact, okay, well, I want to work in animation. I want to work on these sorts of projects, but I don't think I can do the thing that I originally set out to do. And the way I kind of worked around that is I kind of stepped back from it, like I said before, and I worked in a different industry, and that ended up being a really great decision because I actually got to learn a whole different sort of skill set that I hadn't been able to apply in previous jobs and employment settings, and that was really great. And then once I had done that, I was able to kind of figure out where my place in animation could be, and that was from doing something that had nothing to do with animation for a few years. And so, yeah, I would say the biggest struggle was, kind of trying to figure out my place in it and kind of what I was willing to, do to work in that industry, and being able to step back and broaden my horizons a little bit really helped me out in the long run.
It's really cool to hear. So this question is for Theanne and Julie. If you could have a career redo, would you choose your current profession?
Yes, definitely. Sometimes, so now that I've moved to California, I've really gotten into plants. Like I even have some here in my office now. So sometimes I wonder, like, maybe I would have been a botanist because plants are just so cool, man. They're so cool. But 100%, I would do science again. I love everything about it. I love so many aspects of my job, and specifically academic science. I have trainees in my lab. I work with graduate students. I have an undergrad who recently joined with 0 research experience, and I saw her for the first time today, sitting at a microscope, doing just kind of messing around with a little dissection, and it just reminded me like why I do this. I do this because I love science and I'm curious and I have questions that I want to ask and answer, but I also enjoy working with people. I also enjoy the kind of teaching/training aspect of my job. And so I wouldn't change that for the world. Maybe be a botanist instead of a neuroscientist. Maybe, I'm not sure though. But the brain and the nervous system is super cool also. But man, I love plants though. We'll see.
I love plants too, but I kill every single plant that comes into my orbit. So I can't, like even like succulents, like the ones you don't even like water, they always die. I don't know what it is. Maybe we can talk later. You can give me like your green thumb like tips. I would definitely do what I'm doing. I'm living my dream. This is what I always wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to do this after I graduated from Westtown, and every summer after my years in college, like I didn't wait until the summer between your junior and senior year to start interning. After my freshman year, I started interning and doing it and making sure that I was setting myself up to try to get into, publishing and media and be the best damn editor I could be. and writer and storyteller I can be. So I would definitely be doing this. I think that, my curiosity, my passion to write, I think to your point, I love working with people. I want to talk to people. I want to do all the things. I also love a lipstick. It just all married together in such an amazing way. And I count myself lucky all the time that I get to get up and do this. And honestly, I think, Talia was talking about this earlier about how she has I wanted to do this. I wanted a bakery. I wanted to cure cancer. I think that you can be all of these things. You can be a multi-hyphenate person. I like to wear several different hats or I'll get bored. And I think that thankfully in my profession, I have a profession that is now opening a lot of doors. I started off in fashion actually, and then moved into doing fashion and beauty. And now I'm solely beauty, but there is still fashion in there. And you can see that all of these big companies, the J. Crews of the world, the Gucci's of the world, the Estee Lauders, the L'Oreals, they want editors are getting jobs at these places now because they want storytellers. They want content. You don't just go onto, Clinique now to buy your facial cleanser. They're doing, profiles on people and those take editors like myself and writers like myself. So I'm really grateful that my career and what I'm doing is now opening up doors to other things. And I don't have to just be at a magazine or just be at a, website like the Huffington Post. I can go and work for L'Oreal and Estee Lauder or Gucci, but I also can go and work for Netflix. They want storytellers. How can I, maybe I'd go into screenwriting after this, or I tell, the story of a little brown girl from Chester Springs, Pennsylvania, who went to a dope ass Quaker boarding school, who then became a beauty director at Cosmopolitan. You know what I'm saying? That's a story that people want to hear. Holler at me, Amanda. Tell the people at Netflix I'm ready to tell the stories. And Cole can animate it. I don't know. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, I can put together a team of artists to animate it.
Let's go. And then there's a children's book about it. What are we doing here? Let's all band together and make these dreams come true.
Okay, guys. So last question of the night. I want to ask Amanda, Talia, and Cole. What are some of the biggest challenges that you all face in your field at this moment? Any of you can go first.
I would say for me, animation is very rewarding and it's very fun, but it can be a bit of a grind. It's a lot of late nights, and particularly in my end of what I do, it's dealing with lots of schedules and people's time and that sort of thing. I have to I have to work with a lot of artists, and having been an artist myself, I know that's a really hard thing to just kind of pull out of yourself, on a consistent schedule. So, you're often dealing with people who are turning things in late or need a lot of notes and things like that. And, at the same time, I need to make sure this is all getting done so it can be sent to Korea on time so that they can animate it over there. And, it's especially on the show that I work on right now, there's 100 superhero characters in one setting, and you need to make sure that, they're all painted correctly and that they all, all the information that the animators in Korea need is all present. And, it's a lot of meticulous work. So, yeah, I've done plenty of late nights. I think I've stayed up to 2, 3 o'clock making sure everything is, ready to go when it needs to go. So, yeah, I would say that's the difficult part. The other difficult part is, unlike a lot of jobs where you're hired and you do the job for, as long as you want to, or they fire you, or whatever. My job has like a set amount of time, so I work on a show for like a year and a half, and then I'm out of a job again, and so I need to go find another one. Luckily, the way it's kind of set up at the studios is if you do a good job and they like you and you know people, they usually roll you on to something else. I've been working on my last show and my new show. I've been working on both of them for the last 2 weeks because they liked me, and so they wanted to put me on to Scooby-Doo, and so now I've been working on those 2 shows for the last 2 weeks. So I lucked out, but sometimes you don't get so lucky in this industry. I had a friend who worked at Warner Brothers. He was an artist. He was really good, and people liked him, but he didn't find another job right away. And he worked at like a barbecue restaurant for like a year before he found his next animation job. So it can be kind of tough, but again, it's very rewarding, and I'm doing what I wanted to be doing. So I can't complain too much.
I'm in finals right now. That's really rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have a field right now. But in college finals is rough. And as for my book, I'm like really laid back about my book. I don't expect if you expect to make a lot of money off your book, then yeah, that'll probably be pretty stressful. But as of now, like I kind of wrote this book because I just was a nerd and I loved all these types of writing. And I just wanted to make one of my own, and I just really liked doing it, so I just kept doing it. I didn't really expect to, be J.K. Rowling, but if it takes me there, then I'll be very happy with that. But I don't expect it to. I have a whole different. I'm pre-law. I'm more focused on my LSATs right now, but so yeah, I would just say like my biggest problem would be like if I wanted to make money would be just getting the book out there, advertising, all of that. That would be very challenging for me because that does take a lot of just the confidence in what you do and your writing. And I mean, I feel like I'm pretty confident about it, but I just feel like I just have so much else going on right now that I'm just like, and I have all these I have new books that I want to write, and I just don't feel like putting all of that effort into it because I don't know, I just never expected it to just take off. So yeah, I would just say if that would be my challenge if I was solely making money off my book.
Yeah. And I think for me personally, the space is always evolving when it comes to like tech, like AI, machine learning, always evolving. So knowing how to pivot and keeping yourself relevant in the space, I think is, a personal challenge I go through. I feel like every year when we listen to our hiring managers, the engineering managers talk about what they're doing, I'm like, what? This hasn't been done before. And then as a company, I think one thing that, we're focusing on is just, right now it's very competitive. A few years ago, there wasn't much there in the streaming space, and it's nice to have competition, but seeing the different models, other streaming companies, HBO Max, Disney Plus, all these other great streaming services are also bringing to the table, and how we can, continue staying relevant with our competitors.
Well, thank you everyone so much. It's been really, really incredible to hear from you all.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
For our audience, if you really enjoyed this and you're looking to hear more about from Westtown alumni in particular, you can email me at toby.zuckerberg, that's ERG at the end, at westtown.edu, and I will be happy to send you the information for my speaker series, which is weekly. And if you are interested in speaking, or you know anybody who you think could do a really awesome job, it's about 45 minutes in talking, just feel free to email me. Yeah, and we're gonna hand it over to Dami.
Thank you, Toby and Ada. Shout out to you two, and I want to say this because it takes guts to come on screen and interview folks, and you guys just knocked it out of the park. I know you're students, and I know you're busy, so I want to say thank you so much. And shout out to Talia too, because you're in the middle of finals. You wrote a book this year. It's a pandemic, and you're doing great as a college student. And so I hope that you're proud of yourself too. And I know we're proud of you at Westtown, and we thank you too for sitting on this screen in the middle of finals and just being a 21-year-old college student. That was an awesome panel, and I was so enthused and invigorated in the background, giving virtual snaps. The energy was awesome. So thank you to all our panelists for showing up, and I hope you all out there enjoyed seeing them and hearing about their career paths. And as Toby said, if any of you are interested in sharing your stories with our dope Westtown students, you all can be a part of this Untitled Speaker Series. So you can email him at toby.zuckerberg@westtown.edu, or you can email me, dami.waldred@westtown.edu, and we'll get you connected because our students are so interested and they love to hear from you. Again, thank you all for joining us tonight, and we are going to give away some prizes. So we can roll those names now. So I'll just announce while we're waiting for the names to roll. Max Pender, you won. Benjamin Waterhouse, Emma Seving, Adrian Harness, Meredith Roberts, and Pat Alsip. And I apologize if I said your name wrong, but you will be receiving your prizes in the mail, so stay tuned. And for all of you out there who are wondering other ways to engage with Westtown, come to Virtual Alumni Weekend. It is from May 13th through the 16th, and you can register at the link that is scrolling through your screen. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. You all will receive a survey in the mail tomorrow, and have a good evening. Bye.